Smackdown was on the air from Des Moines, Iowa, and it was one of the most boring episodes of Smackdown that has ever been produced by the WWE. And let me tell you, the crowd did not help because the crowd basically came to look at the ceiling. They didn't come to actually have fun at the show. There was no fun to be had. And unfortunately, that's what WWE wanted. They just wanted to steal the money from the audience, and therefore they did. So we're going to get through this review as quickly as possible. So Damian Priest showed up. He picked a fight with Jacob Fatu. He wants to fight him. LA Knight was upset that Damian Priest and Solo Sikoa had got involved in his championship match or his number one contenders match and caused him to lose. Damian Priest said he came out to deal with Drew McIntyre, who was not in the building, by the way. Drew McIntyre was not there. No reason given. He just wasn't present. Then we got an LA Knight, Damian Priest argument back and forth where Damian Priest says, well, you lost the title anyway, so that's your fault. And they both lost at WrestleMania, by the way. Damian Priest was really impressing upon LA Knight that he lost at WrestleMania, but he also lost at WrestleMania. They were supposed to have a match later. Ended up having a match right now. It went a while before it got thrown out by disqualification, because Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu came down there and attacked both of them. It's going to lead to a tag team match next week. Later on in the show, Nick Aldis is hanging out with Jacob and Solo, and they're discussing what the next move is for Jacob Fatu. And Nick Aldis makes it a triple threat match between Jacob Fatu, Damian Priest, and LA Knight, which of course makes no sense because Drew McIntyre won the number one contendership, which Solo Sikoa reminded him of. And then Nick Aldis, in his genius, decides to make it a fatal four-way match. And of course, I wanted to throw everything in my house. What was the point in having a number one contenders match if it ends up in a fatal four-way? What was the point? Triple H, are you retarded? What was the point? No wonder Drew McIntyre didn't come to work. I wouldn't have come to work either if I knew I was going to get screwed around like this. I don't get it. And his whole gimmick is, I'm constantly getting screwed. My name's Drew and I get screwed. And he just got screwed again. Poor guy. Moving on. Fraxium, they're making a debut. They're going to wrestle Pretty Deadly, who are glad to see some new Europeans, but they actually went to their, quote, Uncle Nick to see if Fraxium is any good. Well, technically, Fraxium is very good because they beat Pretty Deadly. At one point in time, the blonde one, which I believe was Kit Wilson, did not kick out when he was supposed to, and the ref had to whiff a 3 count. I mean, next time, just count him out, young lady. It was a black female ref. Next time, just count him out. Don't worry about it. The match was okay. I mean, it's always okay. I'm surprised Pretty Deadly is still around, if we're being honest. Backstage, B-Fab and Mia Yim won a tag team championship match. Now they're just throwing people together, man. I get it. They've been friends. They've been on screen a couple of times together. But they ain't having one tag team match to first. How in the world are they now the number one contenders, or should be, or want to be? And then why is Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez just gone? I don't get this. Anyway, Chelsea Green shows up. She's wearing all black to mourn her loss of championship. She then complains that the championship match was rigged, which is, my goodness, what a joke that is. That's a hell of a joke, right? Wrestling is rigged. A wrestling match is rigged. She says she wants a recount, and if she doesn't get it, she's going to take Nick Aldis to the Supreme Court. Nick Aldis just looks at this like it's absolute ridiculousness. Then she says to him, of course Nick Aldis doesn't understand because he's not from here. And then Nick Aldis very intelligently says, well, neither are you, or you. There's nothing but foreigners in this room. Deport them all. Anyway, Chelsea Green is very upset. She says, if you give me a rematch, a recount, as she says, I won't take you to the Supreme Court. Nick Aldis says that he's not going to do that. He's going to give the match to Piper Niven instead. So Piper Niven's going to wrestle Zelina Vega. And if Piper Niven wins, she's going to become the number one contender for the Women's United States Championship. So that match happens. It was long and boring. It was so boring. The crowd does not care about Zelina Vega. They had a great video of her taking the U.S. Championship to her dad's burial site. Very sweet moment, I believe. But this crowd did not care about Zelina at all. Again, Zelina is a really good talker. She has really good personality. Why would they not utilize that? I don't know. Also, what's up with the Mercedes stuff? Like, she's doing the little shimmy that Sasha Banks does. Do they have heat and I don't know anything about it? I just did a quick look, and it seems like they had an issue back in 2022 where Sasha Banks botched a Meteora and hit Zelina Vega in the face, and that led to Zelina kicking her during the Royal Rumble or something like that. It's nothing major, like no long-standing heat from what I can understand, but she's been doing a lot of little Sasha Banks stuff over time, from mimicking her hair. Now she's mimicking her dance. I wonder what's up with that. Somebody should ask, but it ain't going to be me. And by the time I'm in a position to ask that question, I'm not going to remember it nor care. But this match was not good. Piper Niven is just big fat for no reason. Reminds me a lot of Earthquake. Decent athleticism for somebody of her size, but will never be taken seriously because she's so agile and generous for somebody for her size. They did the old gimmick where Chelsea Green caused a distraction. Piper Niven tried to attack while from behind. Zelina was very swift. She dodged it. Chelsea Green was knocked off the ring apron. Piper Niven was rolled up by Zelina Vega, and the match was over. So there's that. Zelina Vega, probably better off if they would have just did a championship celebration or something in the ring to get some attention on her, But Des Moines, Iowa, what can you do? Jeez. She's going to die a death out there if they don't put some kind of energy behind somebody on this show. Nia Jax came back. She's back for the title. Tiffany Stratton showed up. Says that she's not the same girl Nia used to bully. She beat Charlotte and she's going to beat Nia too. She got a cheer for beating Charlotte, saying she beat Charlotte. Naomi then interrupted by saying that Tiffany and Nia made her life a living hell, and she's done playing the back seat. She's looking for gold. And that she's not only going to push Tiffany on top of a car, she's going to push Tiffany underneath a car. Man, she learned a lot. What the hell has she been learning at these Thanksgiving tables? She been listening to these Bloodline guys too much. Jade Cargill, of course, came out there and chased Naomi, which led to a 4-person brawl. This was, unfortunately, our makeshift main event, and this made me want to gouge my eyeballs out. Jade Cargill and Tiffany Stratton versus Nia Jax and Naomi. Now, at least they didn't forget that Nia Jax and Naomi had issues because they had, arguments during the match. Tiffany Stratton Jade Cargill ended up getting the pin. She powerbombed Nia Jax off the second rope. Now, here's the thing. They're building up Nia Jax to be the number one contender, allegedly. And then this happens. Earlier in the night, though, Jade announced that she's going to be wrestling Nia Jax to see who will be the number one contender. And now, then they beat Nia almost immediately afterwards. This doesn't make sense. Unless Jade Cargill is going to beat Nia Jax next week, which she probably should, then Tiffany Stratton and Jade Cargill are going to have a rematch from their previous week's match, or I think it was last week. And this time it's going to be for the title. And they continue to build this by after Jade gets the pin, she snatches the belt from the referee. And Tiffany just puts her hand out and waits patiently for Jade to put the belt in her hand. And I don't know, maybe show some, show that you're kind of pissed off by that. Like, how dare you touch my stuff? Give me my shit, And they started doing a little bit of a tug of war before, there was some attacks from behind and all this stuff. After that, Naomi lifted up the belt, so they're probably teasing another triple threat match, but for God's sake. Heavens to Betsy. What a disaster. So far, SmackDown ain't coming across as anything that you absolutely need to see, right? Mello and the Dre are backstage with The Miz. The Miz cuts a promo Really good promo about people need to put respect on his name. He says that he has survived in this business he survived next big things. He survived legends and icons. He's outlasted them all. He lasted 20 years in a place that Alistair Black couldn't even last 5. Then he says that Alistair Black has to attack him to make noise and had to attack him to make a statement and get attention on himself. But he ain't knocked me out. He woke me up. I'm like, hell yeah. The Miz, you have to actively be trying very hard to not like The Miz. You have to be trying pretty hard. Miz versus Alistair Black. Actually, a pretty good match. It was surprisingly good because The Miz got more offense than I expected it. Secondly, you could tell it was a good match because the AEW fans were online extremely angry that Alistair Black was doing springboard moonsaults and all kinds of stuff. They're like, he hasn't moved like this in 3 years. What's going on? Somebody even came up with a conspiracy theory that Alistair Black got the call in 2022 and decided to sit at home for 3 years doing nothing, only having sporadic singles matches here and there, or even sporadic tag team matches to save himself for WWE. That's the depths of their delusion. That a guy threw away 3 years of his career on the hopes that he could return to WWE sooner. And they truly believe this. Somebody truly believes this mess. How can you think like this? This is a guy who said that he was fine for a long time. Everybody was talking about how bad his back was and how screwed up he was. He was moving fine. Like his last singles match in AEW, I believe, was against Adam Cole, and they both look a little sickly, but that was months ago. Months and months ago. But The Miz did a good job here making him look good. The Miz did the it kicks, the Brian kicks, and Alistair Black sort of no-sold them. He kind of laughed at The Miz's kicks. The only problem I had with this match, I think, is that Alistair Black can insist on throwing forearm shivers rather than throwing punches. And I would rather he just throw punches because forearm shivers look like shit. The highlight of the match, of course, comes with The Miz almost got the skull-crushing finale and Alistair Black did a cartwheel out of it. I would have liked for that to go right into the finish. Like, right as soon as he cartwheeled out of that, Miz should have got up. He'd be surprised, shocked, get up, and then get Black Mass, and then that was it. That would have been great. They finished instead with, a little bit of an exchange. But it was still Black Mass, Miz went down, and that was it. And then the match ends with Carmelo Hayes and Alistair Black staring at each other in the ring, teasing a confrontation, which is exactly what both of these guys need. We do need to hear Alistair Black kind of set a course of action and move in that direction. I've always said that you could tell a lot about people about where you put them on the roster, and Alistair Black being put with Carmelo Hayes, it's good for Carmelo, I guess, because Alistair Black is kind of hot, and he's one of the few things on the show that got a fan reaction. But for the most part, he's lower on the card than he probably should be, considering John Cena is the world champion, and you can't start there. I initially thought that this match would be a squash match in order to establish Alistair Black as a killer. He would go in there, Miz would do something silly, and then he just get Black Mass and pinned. They even teased it that the Miz would charge him and he would do the kick and that would be it. But Miz cowered off, which was great. Some could say that Miz got a little too much offense, though. I'm willing to entertain that argument. All right, Phoenix and Santos Escobar got into an argument backstage. Santos Escobar says he's disappointed in Phoenix, and Phoenix embarrassed the entirety of Lucha Libre, and that Rey Mysterio was gone, and then he did the Hail Mary and kissed his Jesus piece, his cross by saying hopefully forever that Rey is gone, and that he's going to take Rey's place as Phoenix's hero. Phoenix says he only trusts one luchador, and it's not Santos Escobar. And then they decided to have a match later that night. Rey Fenix versus Santos Escobar. Not much of a reaction for either party, but then again, it's Des Moines, Iowa. That being said, this match, they were trying very hard. Santos Escobar was in the ring, being very loud, telling Phoenix that they could control the company, they could run the company if they work together. He's pushing them, shoving them, kicking them in the head. He made Phoenix work for it. But he did the job, but he made Phoenix work for it, which was pretty damn sweet. I think they could have had a better match somewhere else where the crowd would have appreciated it. I don't think this crowd really appreciated what they were trying to do here, if we're being honest and if we're being fair. Next, Randy Orton. He cut a promo. It meandered, and I wasn't thrilled about it. Orton says that Cena took advantage of the company being PG, turned himself into a cartoon character while Randy Orton stayed true to who he is. He says that all John Cena cares about is his bottom line. That's why he had new merchandise every week. And then he says that the only thing John Cena raised was the price of his merchandise, which real hardworking parents have to pay for, which got a decent reaction from the crowd. It's like, yeah, you see the cost of this goddamn t-shirt that I just bought my kid? Then Randy Orton said that John Cena sold his soul 20 years ago, which I felt like we should have started right there. He says that he'll give John the hustle because he works his ass off. But what happened to the loyalty? What happened to the respect? Said that Cena disrespected the family name of Orton, so he's going to erase it. But he says, no, John Cena is just another legend that needs to be put down by the legend killer. Okay. I think the angle is that John Cena sold his soul for 20 years ago. I think that's the angle. If Orton would have started right there by saying, oh, John, you guys are surprised. I knew Cena sold his soul 20 years ago when he turned himself into a cartoon character for the PG rating or something, even though that's a little too inside baseball, but what the TV rating is. Again, this is the internet writing the storyline. Orton's got to say things that's going to stimulate the hardcore wrestling fans and not lean so much into their personal history, which is what we kind of want to hear more about. They've been showing highlight packages of Orton versus Cena from various eras. They showed TLC this time, which I don't remember. I don't think that's a match I've ever actually seen. I don't think I've actually seen Orton versus Cena TLC. It's interesting because maybe I did see it and I just don't remember it. But something tells me I didn't even see that. I've never seen that match. I don't remember seeing that event either. R-Truth told Randy Orton he doesn't have a chance in beating John Cena. And Jimmy Uso was like, what the hell? Where did that come from? And then R-Truth said, well, John Cena told me that, you don't have a chance. And John Cena wouldn't lie to me. And that was that. Because R-Truth is so naive and so pure, he believes heel John Cena. That's actually pretty sweet. They turned him into Eugene, though. Eugene was so pure and sweet that you could tell him anything. He just believed it. But that's kind of how they turned R-Truth into this big old baby. You can lie to him all you want. But this episode of Smackdown really didn't have much going for it. Outside of Alistair Black's re-debut, which I think was very successful, there wasn't much else on the show. A large problem is how many people have time off now at one time. Look, it's okay to give people time off, but you can't give all the stars time off at once. You can't have John Cena working part-time, Orton working once every couple of months, no Cody, no Bianca. I know Bianca is injured. That can't be helped. Liv gets time off to disappear and do nothing, do her own thing. And then and Punk has been gone since WrestleMania 2 and Roman's been gone. So who's the star of the show? Who are you watching this show to see? You're watching this show to see Randy Orton cut a promo on somebody who's not there. Drew McIntyre wasn't even on the show. So, and look, Tiffany Stratton, Charlotte wasn't even on the show either. She was out going on dates with Alex Rodriguez, the baseball player. So, who was the stars on the show? Who was the star? The best you had was Tiffany Stratton, and then you put her on in the middle of the show. You didn't put her in a hot angle at the beginning of the show and told stories throughout the episode that probably could have kept people interested in what they were doing if she was going to be the star of the show tonight. At least mask it by having her do something that's interesting on the show. She starts it, does something in the middle, and then works at the end too. If that's what you wanted to do. If you wanted to build something with the three of them or the four of them, have it start at the beginning with, some kind of inciting incident with, Tiffany and Jade or Tiffany and Naomi or Tiffany and Nia. And then later something happens to build the heat. And then that sets up the tag team match after that. But it should have been something big, something major. And something that's going to keep people interested. And you could have masked the fact that there were no stars present. But now you just made it seem like, okay, this Des Moines thing is so unimportant. We're not even going to ask our B-level stars like Charlotte and Drew McIntyre to show up. It's like, oh, you don't even have to make the town. We're going to put Tiffany in the town. It's Tiffy time. We're going to throw Alistair Black in the town just to see what happens. And then, of course, there was no Alexa Bliss and no Wyatt Six. Of course, they didn't show up tonight. I don't think, at this point, bro, I'm not even certain they're ever going to show up again. I mean, it's been gone for so long, it's unreal. But this is Triple H's WWE. He talks so much about giving talent the time off without realizing that you're asking us to invest 3 hours of our time, of our lives, into this product, and then you're telling the stars to go home and rest. Like, oh, WrestleMania was so stressful for you. Go take a nap. Okay, go do your movies and go, decompress from your very tough WrestleMania weekend. Meanwhile, you better off just having a days off, just deciding, oh, that's the end of the season and we're going to be gone for 2 months or something like that. But of course, they're not going to do that. They got a bunch of shows coming up, kind of crunched together. Backlash. Then I think shortly after Backlash is Elimination Chamber. And then shortly after that is Saturday night's main event. And then they got another pay-per-view after that. Maybe I got it backwards or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's time to really start talking about who's going to win Money in the Bank. And I don't think that there's anybody so solidly, male or female, that would make sense to win Money in the Bank. Maybe Chelsea Green as the Money in the Bank winner for the women is probably the best option. Or, the most fun option. And I would go with that. I would go with Chelsea Green. For the girls. For the guys, however, I'm thinking you're probably going to go with Seth Rollins. It's probably the best option you got there. Not because he needs it, but because it's a way of utilizing something to get the belt off of Jey Uso when they're ready to get the belt off Jey. They could do it at any time with the Money in the Bank. So I can see Seth Rollins winning Money in the Bank and then Chelsea Green winning the women's Money in the Bank. But you have to do something to get these shows more interesting. Your stars have to be involved in angles. They have to do things. They can't just talk to each other and, you show video packages. That's not going to work. SmackDown has become incredibly boring. Even if it was going back to 2 hours, the first 2 hours of this show wasn't great. If you'd have made this show 2 hours, all you would have done is cut out some of the fluff. You probably would have cut out Fraxium, and you probably would have cut out maybe cut some of that time out of the Miz and Alistair Black, but for the most part, it would have been the exact same fucking show. So don't give me that. Well, the problem is that it's 3 hours. No, the problem is that it's booked by an idiot. That's the problem. The Road Dogg sucks. These people are not good. The product has gotten substantially more drab when they took over, and it can't even be debated. All right, like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you people later. Peace out, fans.
Yeah. We just gonna